Okay, so we've talked about how air comes in and out using that pressure gradient by creating high and low pressure inside the lungs. The next thing is we want to see what happens at the cellular level, um, right at the end of the branches going into the lungs. So at the end of that, we have the alveoli. And I'll give you some definitions about what that is in a second. We did talk about this in the first semester, so I want to just review it really quickly before we go into that. Okay, so we have the alveoli, we have a blood vessel next to it. In reality, the blood vessels wrap around it, but just for ease of showing you, we're showing it like this. Now, the blood is coming from the right ventricle. Okay, so remember, blood leaves the heart from the right ventricle and goes to the lungs, and then it goes through the lungs back to the left atrium, okay, where it's moved out to the rest of the body. Now, we have blood coming back from the body to the lungs is deoxygenated. Doesn't have oxygen, but that doesn't tell the full story. We have blood that is rich in carbon dioxide. So we have a high concentration of carbon dioxide in the blood relative, compared to a relatively low concentration of carbon dioxide in the alveoli. And this works the same way as an air pressure gradient, the same way as diffusion when you've talked about that in bio, is if we have a high concentration of carbon dioxide compared to a low concentration, carbon dioxide moves from high to low. So the carbon dioxide moves out of the bloodstream and into the alveoli, where it is then breathed out. On the flip side of that, we have oxygen coming in, where we have a high concentration of oxygen in the alveoli and a low concentration in the blood. That causes the oxygen to jump from the alveoli into the bloodstream onto these red blood cells, and more specifically the hemoglobin. Okay, and that's what transports the oxygen throughout the blood. Okay, so we have a couple of definitions for you. So the first thing is bronchiole. Remember, eole means little. These are the smallest branches of air tubes inside of the lungs. This is what connects to the alveoli. Okay, the alveoli is the site of gaseous exchange, and these are the sacs at the end of the bronchioles. Okay, they do have, in reality, they have blood vessels wrapping around them, but we're just showing it this way. We have, on this side, the blood vessel coming in is called the pulmonary, which means lungs, and artery because it is going away from the heart. On this side, we're now going back to the heart, so we call it the pulmonary vein. And remember, these are the two examples that are flipped, because typically we think of arteries as carrying oxygenated blood. This is the only artery that carries deoxygenated blood, and this is the only vein that carries oxygenated blood because they're going to and from the lungs. Okay, so this is our first site of gaseous exchange. Okay, oxygen coming into the bloodstream, carbon dioxide going out. Okay, we call this external respiration. Okay, so we have the exchange, which is respiration, and we call it external. Now, that's a weird title to give it because it's still inside of our body, but we call it external because it's closest to we're exchanging with the external air. On the flip side, we're taking this oxygen to a muscle, right? Because that's what we need. We need oxygen to go into the muscles, into the mitochondria, where it produces energy. Now, when this blood vessel gets to the muscle, again, we have to send oxygen in and carbon dioxide out. Okay, so that's called internal respiration. That's the second site of gaseous exchange. So because we don't just want to keep the oxygen in the bloodstream, we actually have to use it. Now, one other thing that I mentioned briefly is these red blood cells contain hemoglobin. That's what actually carries the blood. Okay, that's what the oxygen and carbon dioxide bind to, is the hemoglobin. Okay, and that is a picture of what hemoglobin looks like. If you notice, right in the middle, there's an Fe. Fe stands for iron, so it's an iron-based molecule. Okay, and it is protein-based as well, so this is like a quaternary protein structure, but that doesn't mean anything to you right now. All right, do I want to talk about this?